Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, and today I'm going to be doing a beta review of the free-to-play first-person shooter, Quake Champions. The Quake Champions is currently in the middle of a closed beta. It's going to be running for about 7 more days, so please note that the thoughts I have in this video are probably going to be drastically different to my thoughts when I actually go and do a full review when the game actually comes out. But with that said, let's get right into it, and the first thing I want to go and talk about is the gameplay. Now the gameplay, not in terms of the mechanics of shooting your weapon and moving around the map, the movement, whatever. To be perfectly honest, Quake Champions very much feels the same as Quake Live in Quake 3. Now, I know a lot of people would get angry by that and to say, no, this is different, but overall, if you're looking at the games from purely mechanics standpoint, they very much have the same physics, they very much have the same way you move around the map and you shoot the weapons and whatnot. And even when you go and look at how the game presents itself in terms of the modes, in terms of the weapon pickups and whatnot, they are very much the same as the previous titles as well. It's very obvious that Quake Champions is not a departure from the Quake formula. It's very much a rehashing, it's a revamping, it's a revitalization of the Quake formula in a 2017 first-person shooter format. It's very different to, let's say, Call of Duty. Each year, Call of Duty tries to go and reinvent itself. It tries to go and reinvent the wheel. However, Quake Champions is trying to go and stick to the core ideas that made the game so successful in the early 2000s and the late 1990s. Now, with that said, that can potentially be a problem. And I'm breaking this video into multiple parts, but at the end of the video, I'm going to be talking about, will Quake Champions survive? A lot of people saying that this game will be instantly successful. However, I have to say I am a bit skeptical about saying instantly successful. It has to have the right combination of elements and the right demographic all put together, and overall this game can be a success, but I'll talk about that later on. So with Quake Champions being a revitalization, a revamp of the series, what am I going to go and talk about in this section? Well, with this gameplay section, I'm going to be talking about the main differences between the two games. And obviously the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this game has champions. In the past, Quake has simply been, you hop into a server and everybody is exactly the same. The only differences between people is skill and cosmetics. Like, some people have a certain skin, but overall it's a skin. It doesn't affect hitboxes. It doesn't affect movement speed. In Quake Champions, there is a whole new dynamic of the actual champions themselves. You have champions that are extremely fast, extremely nimble, high movement speeds, however, low health pools. Then you have more tanky characters, really high health pools, but really it takes a long time for them to go and move around the map. And saying that, if you don't know how to go and strafe jump, a really pivotal part, these slow characters feel even slower. If you've played the game enough, you'll realize that champions, yes, they do affect the gameplay, to a significant extent. It's not as significant and not as game-changing as something along the lines of heroes in Overwatch and heroes and paladins and so on. The champions in Quake don't go and make or break your experience. You can't go from one champion to another champion and become a completely different player. The champions, they're supposed to go and complement your playstyle. For example, if you're a person that loves to go and zip around the map extremely fast and you're not scared of getting one hit by a rocket launcher, then go and play Ning. She's an absolutely fantastic champion for that type of playstyle. Her special ability, her ultimate ability is the fact she can go invisible. And invisible, untargetable, can't take any damage, and then you can go and pop out and get the one-up over your opponent. But saying that, if you're a person that potentially is less experienced at a first-person shooter, but not necessarily if you want to go and play at a more slower pace, then you can go and play the champion Clutch. Clutch is fantastic, as when you're standing still, you take, I believe, 15 or 20% less damage. His ultimate ability is a shield, and he's more of a champion that you want to go and sit back potentially with a railgun and just go and snipe people, and that is something that Clutch is really good with. You could also go for some long-range rocket launcher shots or something along those lines. He's a tanky character, he has good armor, it's made for that slower playstyle. But with that said, there's nothing that says you can't go and play extremely fast-paced with these more tanky characters. If you know how to strafe jump properly, you can go and get some decent speed with these characters. You can get right up in your opponent's faces, and you can get the advantage in a one-on-one duel simply because you have more HP. And if you have better aim, you're going to be absolutely decimating the battlefield in close-range battles. So overall, it doesn't really matter what champion it is. It's how you go and really utilize that champion. Quake 1, Quake 2, Quake 3, Quake Live, Quake 4, whatever. All of these games had the one-size-fits-all formula. Basically, if you wanted to be, you know, a person that could go and get decent scores, you know, in games or whatever, you had to go and play that extremely fast play style, zipping around the map, trying to get these insane railgun shots, insane rocket launcher shots. And a lot of people, especially in 2017, when, you know, gamer demographics is not just a lot of young people playing, a lot of older people playing, a lot of younger people playing as well. The spectrum is extremely wide. You can't just go and dedicate a game completely towards people that have insane reaction times and insane map awareness. You have to go and open it up in order to go and make it appeal, in order to appeal to a wider demographic. And overall, the way that Quake Champions has it, I don't think it compromises on the core gameplay, but it does go and expand, and that makes it potentially a game that could become really popular, especially with being free to play, and I'll talk about that later on, but also with it potentially being an esport. You know, Bethesda and id, they have gone and constantly said that they want this game to go down the competitive route, and I don't think these champions hinder the competitive element. I think they actually go and increase the competitive element by introducing another metagame of trying to go and mind game people out of what champions they may or may not have, and then trying to go and work around that. Now, by no means do I think the champions concept is perfect. It is extremely flawed, and it will be extremely flawed throughout the lifetime of this game. The hope that Bethesda and id has is that they can go and manage it to an extent where older characters will be somewhat relevant in casual play. In competitive play, it will always be overpowered because there's always going to be hero champions that will be significantly more played than others. For example, at the moment, the low health pool champions are getting a ton of play from the top tier players simply because they have the highest movement speeds, and that is what those players are used to. And after about 7 minutes, I still haven't gone and answered the question, do I think Quake Champions is a fun video game? Well, to be perfectly honest, yes, I am absolutely loving this game, and I think it's pretty obvious from what I was saying before that I'm enjoying the game because it feels like normal Quake. It feels like Quake, but it's revamped. You have this champions element, it goes and mixes it up a little bit, but overall it feels like Quake. You can hit those insane railgun shots, you can go and hit those insane rocket launcher shots, you can go and get those Twitch, those Reddit moments, and overall I feel like that is one of the core experiences of Quake, and it's what has really defined the game. The skill matchups are still there, the competitive nature is still there, but it's more accessible to a casual community, and I think that is really fantastic. The next thing I want to go and talk about is the graphics. I think the revamped graphics of Quake is true to the style of Quake. One of my main games that I do in this channel, Combat Arms, it's currently going through a graphics update, and the graphics update completely goes and compromises the style, the aesthetic of the original game. Quake Champions, in comparison, it fits the lore, it fits the theme, it fits the aesthetic of the game extremely well. A lot of people have been complaining that they can't go and chuck their graphics extremely low in Quake, and that is something with competitive shooters overall that is extremely hard to go and balance. You have to go in balance. Okay, we want the game to be actually looking quite nice in order, you know, for great screenshots, great video. Whenever people upload, you know, content to YouTube, for example, this video, they want the actual, you know, game to look decent rather than just a pile of shit. But competitive gamers, they really like their graphics on the lowest possible, so there's maximum clarity in order to go and find their opponents. There has to be a middle point, and I think that middle point isn't exactly fine-tuned at the moment. I think at times it is a little bit difficult to go and find your opponent, but they've gone and compromised on this by putting a red arrow over your opponent's head. However, that red arrow sometimes doesn't pop in as quickly as it should be, and overall that competitive flow is broken a little bit. It's a bit of an on and off issue, it needs some tweaking, but I think at the moment the graphics is in a decent spot. However, with some more customization options, I think it would be a lot better. In order to go and just remove some of the unnecessary filters, the unnecessary, you know, particle effects, I think that would go a long way in making, you know, the game a lot more, you know, clarity based for these competitive gamers. Personally, one of the big issues in the beta right now is matchmaking and the flow of getting into games. Currently, to get into a game, it takes approximately 3.5 minutes. Now, not 3.5 minutes for the queue to go and pop. It takes about a minute and a half for the queue to go and pop for a team deathmatch game. Then you have to wait, for example, 20 seconds for the map select. Then you have to wait like 30, 40 seconds to actually load into the game. And while that's happening, the pre-match will happen. And the pre-match is like 50 seconds to a minute. Overall, the process of getting into a game is extremely convoluted. And overall, when you're in the game and you're playing it, it's all good and dandy, whatever, besides the lag. I'll talk about that later. But once you've finished the game, you get booted back to the main menu, and then you have to do the whole process again. In my opinion, for casual modes, this is how it should be. You press start, you press team deathmatch, and as soon as there's an opening, be it a current session game, be it a new game, whatever, you just get plopped right into it really quick. Shouldn't take less than a minute to go and find the game. You play out the game, and if you want to go and leave, there will be a disconnect button. But if you want to go and stay, all the same people, they stay in that server, and then you go to a new map, and there'll be a map select, for about 5 or 10 seconds at the end of the game. And that is how the new map is selected. Not you try to go and join into a queue, then you accept the queue. Why do you accept the queue for a casual match? Absolutely makes no sense. People just want to go and hop in. Quake Live, you choose a server, you're in within 10 seconds. Quake Champions, 3.5 minutes, it doesn't go and cut the mustard. It's probably one of the biggest flaws with the game at the moment. It completely goes and breaks the flow, and this can be detrimental to pay-to-play games, but can be even more detrimental, potentially game-destroying for free-to-play games, simply because the 1 to 2 to 3 minutes where people are just sitting around in menus and waiting to get into a game can be 1 to 2 to 3 minutes where people are thinking, man, I don't know, that game was okay, but I didn't really enjoy it. Maybe I should just go and exit it. Maybe I should just go and uninstall it. Maybe I should just never go and play it again. And that is one potential customer loss, because if people just completely in the game immerse and keep playing and playing and playing, they will eventually go and liven up to it because, as I said before, it's a really fun game. But if they're out of it, that is, less experience, less people, overall not a good thing. So Bethesda really has to go and fix that. And to be honest, there is a major list of stuff that has to be fixed, but it is a closed beta. I do give it a little bit of lenience, but the next thing I'm going to be talking about has absolutely no excuses, and that is netcode and lag. Currently, if you're an Australian player, I doubt you can go and play Quake Champions very well. The reason why I detailed it in a previous video, I'll link it in the description below. Basically, Quake Champions, it uses a ton of your upload speed. For me, that's 60 kilobytes per second. The maximum that I have is 75 kilobytes per second. That is not good. Not good, because that means my internet is going to start throttling eventually. I'm going to have extremely high ping because obviously if you're uploading, it's going to go and cut into your bandwidth. It's going to go and increase your ping because delays and whatnot. There's going to be big troubles. And there is big troubles. Australian players are getting completely shafted. Now, I know that Bethesda and id have been saying, okay, we want this 120 hertz gameplay, but you can go and get 120 hertz gameplay, not by uploading 60 kilobytes per second. That is a big problem, and overall the netcode is completely fucked. There is another element to the netcode that is, registry completely fucked at the moment. You can go and hit a railgun shot. Well, you think you hit a railgun shot, it's directly on an opponent, and then it will just not go and register. That is completely game breaking, especially in duels, where one shot can mean the difference between living and dying, winning and losing, going up a rank, going down a rank. It can be completely detrimental. Now, going even further from that, the registry in general is just all over the place. There is people teleporting. The game is a mess at times. But when it is good, when the servers are stable, when you're not uploading too much, when the game decides, okay, I'm not going to upload 60 kilobytes per second, I'm going to upload 5 kilobytes per second like every other FPS does, then that is a-okay. The gameplay is smooth, the gameplay is fantastic, and that's where the netcode goes and shines. The registry is intact, the splash damage, calculates correctly, and overall it is all good. Now, with that said, Bethesda is currently saying that they're trying to go for a little bit of a fix. That fix is to go and move all the registry of the weapons and the detection, whatever. They're going to move it from client side to server side. I honestly don't know why they didn't do it before. Having client-side hit registration makes absolutely no sense because it goes and favors people that are lagging, which is just confusing and overall, detrimental to the game's experience. But hopefully that will be fixed because obviously this is a beta. I'm really going into it because it is a beta, and if somebody from Bethesda does go and see this, they can go and realize how much of a problem it actually is. And then hopefully when I make the follow-up review in a few months or whatever, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months whenever the game gets released, hopefully that will be fixed, because if it isn't fixed, then this game will be a complete flop. Now we're going to be talking about the monetization model, the free-to-play model that id and Bethesda are going for with Quake Champions. Now, if you guys don't know, my channel is basically based around free-to-play games. I've been playing free-to-play games for about 8 to 9 to 10 years or whatever. So I think I have, a decent amount of experience with the genre, and overall, I know what makes and breaks a free-to-play game, because don't worry, I have seen legitimately hundreds of free-to-play games die over, the 10 or so years that I have been going and really focusing on this very niche genre. Now, the way that Quake does it is absolutely fantastic, and I might make a separate video about this, but I really want to go and hamper down the fact that Quake Champions was made to be a pay-to-play game, as in, you go and you drop your $20 and you go and get the core experience. It was made with that in mind. But I think probably down the life cycle, it was decided, okay, if we want to go and get a lot of, butts on seats, a lot of people playing a game, let's go and turn it into a free-to-play game. A lot of games have gone and done that before. For example, Evolve Stage 2, but that was because the game was an original flop. The way that, id and Bethesda are trying to go market this is, okay, it is basically a AAA game, but you're going to go and get it for free. You get one champion, and if you want to go and get the rest, you have to go and drop $20 or $30 to go and get the champions pack. I think that is absolutely fantastic, because that means people are going to go and spend a decent chunk of money basically to go and get the full game experience. You're going to pay less than $60 to go and get the full game experience, which is, is perfect. If you're a free-to-play gamer, you can play it free-to-play, and there is no limitations. I think Ranger is a perfect starter champion, and I would go and play Ranger all the time because I don't think he has any inherent weaknesses, but he's overall not that good in certain scenarios. He's a very well-rounded champion, and it's a really good starter. Now, on top of that, there is cosmetics, there is loot boxes, and I think that is something that really should be encouraged. I know people saying, oh, Overwatch clone, but the fact that Overwatch went and did it, is fine, because Quake should go and do it as well, because it's a great model. You get a lot of money, and also there is absolutely no effect on gameplay. And I think that is something that Quake really has to go and stick to. Quake Champions has to go and really stick to. Not going and affecting the gameplay. Don't have anything that really goes and skews it into a certain person's favor. If they go and drop $20, $30 onto the game, they can go and get an upgraded gun. That is blatantly pay to win. Games, for example, one of, a game that I specialize in, Combat Arms, it's completely pay to win, and that's the reason why the game is dying. Quake Champions, as soon if it goes pay to win, then it will die. But at the moment, it's not looking like it would be pay to win. But don't worry, I've said that many times throughout my years. I've said that, X game is not going to go pay to win, and then it goes pay to win, and guess what? The game goes and dies. So it is a really crucial thing. There will be obviously a core community that will play regardless if it's pay to win, but the likelihood of the game growing and succeeding as an esport is really dependent if the game has a solid monetization model. And I think at the moment, they have got that really down pat. The unfortunate thing is they've got the monetization model down pat in the beta, where people can't go and spend money. I think working on that later on would have been, a bit of a better idea. Work on more of the core gameplay issues rather than how to go and actually make excess money, because the main way you're going to make money initially is through those champions pack, and then later on through passively people buying once in a while, you can go and make that money from those cosmetics. But regardless, I think that Quake Champions is on a really good road to success in that facet. But saying that, is Quake Champions on a road to being a successful video game, a game that's going to go and survive for many years? At the moment, that is quite unknown. I'm going to go and take a stab at, yes, it's going to be somewhat successful, but how big the success will be is going to be really dependent on multiple factors. The first factor is simply getting people to go and play the game. A lot of newer gamers don't know of Quake. A lot of people are, even during this closed beta, have never heard of Quake before, have never heard of Quake Champions, and just getting the word out there that, okay, this is a AAA game. They have to go and properly market it as, okay, it's a AAA game. It's free to play. Go to this link. Go and download it. It's like 10 gig. Go and play it. And if you want to go and play it, you can play it as long as you want, and you have this champion for free. That has to get pushed heavily. The fact that people don't have to pay money is something that a lot of people really resonate with. This free-to-play aspect, it's in the title. It says free-to-play, FPS, and then dash Quake Champions, beta review, whatever. That's because I think a lot of people will click on it simply because it is a free-to-play game. That's why I put it in the title, because I want people to click my video. It makes sense. Bethesda and they're not focusing on the free-to-play aspect enough. Now, obviously, it's a closed beta, but when it comes down to this game getting released, they need to really hammer it that, okay, it's a game that it's free. You can hopefully get it on Steam. Having it on Steam would be perfect in the most popular section, and then people can go and quickly download it and get into the game, whatever, and then through word of mouth, more and more people go and actually understand that this is a fun game and through reviews and whatnot, and then you can go and get that build off. Free to play is really built off word of mouth because there isn't big advertising budgets generally around these games. However, obviously, being big studios, Bethesda and whatever, Bethesda has a ton of money. They can put a ton of money into marketing. And I think also going and paying YouTubers to go and check out the game, like big YouTubers, would be a great idea. One company that went and did that is Nexon. Now, for some of their games, it was a bit of a flop. For example, Dirty Bomb, they did a bit of a paid promotion. It didn't really go and work out. But that is because the game was really flawed at that point. Lawbreakers is a Nexon game that, it's a Boss Key Productions game that has been published by Nexon, and Nexon is chucking a ton of money into sending YouTubers over to their studios. They sent me, a lower tier YouTuber, in order to go and play it, and that got me hooked on the game, and I'm making videos for it. If they can go and get YouTuber support, YouTube is overall a better source of getting people to go and play your game, simply because their viewer bases will go and trust the YouTuber rather than just, a GameSpot review or an IGN review or a Kotaku review. They don't really care. Viewers don't really care about those reviews as much as a YouTuber's perspective, because obviously you get to hear their voice, you get to go and have more of a personal connection. So I think going and investing more into the YouTuber space, obviously I'm a YouTuber, a little bit biased, but I think that could be something that Bethesda can go down. There is many facets that I could go and focus on for this last point, but I'm just going to go and focus on Twitch and tournaments for this video. But don't worry, down the line, I will go and be talking about a lot more. But yeah, Twitch and tournaments, it's something that everybody's trying to go and do in 2017. To be perfectly honest, I know exactly why. Everybody can go and see it. There's big money, there's player numbers, there's viewer numbers. Every game wants to go and get their slice of the pie. League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, Hearthstone, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, those are basically the games that are getting their foot in the door. Dota 2, of course, as well. Those are the big games that have the big esports slice of the pie. But saying that, we have League of Legends, we have Dota, 2 MOBA games, we have H1Z1, we have PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, we have 2 Battle Royale games. But saying that, we have Counter-Strike Global Offensive. But where is the other FPS game? There is no other FPS game, and I think that Quake Champions could be that, but the way that Bethesda has to go and approach this is extremely carefully. If they don't go and do this right, it could go and flop. Now, the thing is that Quake, if the tournaments are hyped up enough, there is a lot of advertisement, there's a lot of exposure, people will go and watch it simply because it's easy to go and pick up. It's easy to go and see what's happening. It's easy to go and see when, Rafa goes and pulls off an amazing railgun shot and the whole stadium erupts in a roar, whatever. People will go and instantly recognize that. The thing with StarCraft and the reason why it's died off is simply because people don't go and recognize when something's happening. They only go and recognize a flood of units. Like, okay, that is kind of cool. I suppose someone's winning the game, but they don't really know why. Quake and CSGO, for the perfect example, CSGO, it's really easy to know when someone hits a deagle headshot because it's on the screen. Same with Quake. Focusing on these epic moments and really highlighting them is something that Bethesda should go and do. And with that said, in between games, go and say it's a free-to-play game, or even during the game, it's a free-to-play game. You can go and download it, click it in the link in the description below. It's what League of Legends does, and that is why it got popular. It got popular because there was a really, really big tournament and competitive scene behind it, a lot of money, a lot of pro players, a lot of people striving to be these pro players, and I think that Quake can go and do that. If there's some people that are really, really, really skilled, you know, other casual players want to go and be these pro players. They want to go and get their level of skill. And so going to highlighting these players, putting it on a pedestal is something that should be done. Go and follow the format of everybody else that has gone and done. I mean everybody else. I mean basically League, Dota, and CSGO. I don't count Overwatch as a success because I don't think it is a successful esport. I think it's an esport that will die eventually, but its initial boom is something that could be modeled to an extent. But with it said, it requires dedication, and I think that Bethesda has it. Because QuakeCon, it's been run every year, basically, for the past, 10 years or something. It's extremely successful, and going and bringing that to the mainstream, going and bringing that to Quake Champions, a Quake game that is made for the masses, but also made for the hardcore purists, I think it's something that can really, really, really work out. But again, it all depends on how well the feedback from this beta is implemented into the game. I've said a lot of things in this video, but the matchmaking, the netcode, the balancing the champions, 3 really big key points. If those key points are not fixed by the time this game goes and gets released, then overall it will be a flop, because the people that are stuck with the game throughout all these betas and whatever will simply go and leave. The thing is, getting people on their seats and getting them to continue playing is the biggest thing in a free-to-play game. The thing with free-to-play games is, if somebody doesn't like the game within the first match or so, they will just simply uninstall. The thing with a pay-to-play game is they drop $10 or $20. They're like, all right, the first game, I didn't like it, but then I'll go and play a few more matches, and then eventually maybe I'll go and like it, and then they, eventually may go and like the game. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a lot of people don't like their first game, but, eventually they go and warm up to it, and, the game is as big as it is right now. Quake Champions has that first kind of thing. Getting the matchmaking right, where you're versing people with similar skill, so you don't get completely gutter fucked in the first match, is really, really, really important, because that means people won't go and rage quit. It's just overall something that is extremely hard to balance. Make it a free-to-play game. It's a risky maneuver, as I talked about in previous videos. I'll link that in the description below as my first initial thoughts on the whole free-to-play element of Quake and how it could potentially be quite successful. But yeah, I think that's all my thoughts. 27 minutes, fucking hell, TotalBiscuit video right here. But hopefully you guys went and enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to go and give it a like rating. But other than that, it's Undercover Dudes all the way from down under. Out.